a coach.
Yes.
So
there's a lot we can learn from this, but I hope people will understand the legal corruption, the fallacies underlying civil asset forfeiture and structuring as a crime. Now, Rand Paul and other individuals have co-sponsored this. I can't remember the co-sponsor in the House. They have sponsored now twice what they call the FAIR Act. The FAIR Act would stop civil asset forfeiture, and it would stop the crime, quote unquote, of structuring if it's not being used to hide something that is illegal activity like HSBC. So hopefully that will go through. People need to understand what this is. And let me give you something from Woody Guthrie. This is the guy who wrote This Land Is Your Land, This Land Is Mine. He said, as through this world I've wandered, I've seen lots of funny men. Some will rob you with a 6-gun, some with a fountain pen. Okay? Dennis Hastert is that kind of man. This attorney, Stephen West, this U.S. attorney who is robbing small businesses throughout central North Carolina, is that kind of man. He is nothing but a thief with a fountain pen, and he's not obeying the law. He won't even obey the reform of this unconstitutional act.
Well, and all I could say is hopefully that with this happening right there in Congress as they're trying to figure out if they're going to reauthorize the Patriot Act or not, everyone there can sort of see that they're not above the law, or that they might,
Hey guys, this is Rob Dew. I just wanted to give y'all a quick update on what's going on. We just got contact from Joe Biggs. He's acquired his rental car and is on his way to the site. So I would say 30, 35 minutes he'll be there, depending on traffic, what it's like. We're about 2 hours ahead here in Texas, so it's about 8 o'clock now. So it's, 6 o'clock there. And so just to give everybody an update out who's watching us online on the YouTube stream and on the Infowars.com/show stream and on prisonplanet.tv, all the streams out there. We appreciate everybody watching. Joe Biggs is on his way. We're going to, as soon as he gets there, we'll get a rundown from him of what he sees, what's going on. And I do believe he's going to be open carrying his head down Provectus rifle. So
good. We'll be able to see it. Hopefully not in action.
The Second Amendment there. So
yeah,
just give you that quick update. David, great breakdown there on the real hidden truth of this Dennis Hastert thing. It's got a lot of angles to it, but I think you've really nailed it.
Well, Rob, I hope that with this, they're still talking about the Patriot Act, as Leanne mentioned, and I hope that people will keep this in mind. People don't understand what's going on. We just saw that with a report from Rex Jones. They don't know what the TPP is. If you asked any of these people what structuring is, they wouldn't know. Businesses don't know. They don't understand how the government is robbing us, and that's really a big part of the problem.
Well, and they think they're above the problem that they're creating for the
they think it's not going to happen to them. But look, no matter, you don't have to have a business. People are getting their cash stolen from them as they're traveling in cars, traveling on trains across this country. Whatever you're carrying, whatever the amount is, it's a big amount to you.
Right.
And actually, people who don't have a lot of money are really in a worse position than someone who has a business that they can use for collateral, because they can hire lawyers to get this back. You don't get a public defender to help you recover your cash when they seize it with civil asset forfeiture, because they say it's not a criminal act, so you don't get a public defender even. So if it's a small amount of money and you're poor, even if you want to do this on the point of principle, you're not going to be able to do it because you're not going to have the money to challenge these people in court.
And also, too, there with the veiled threats that the police are issuing to people that they're confiscating their money. You were mentioning that they were kind of also sending out those same threats to the bankers themselves.
Absolutely. They are going after individuals. They're going after small businesses. They let the big criminals, the big banks like HSBC, who are actually doing criminal money laundering, they let them go with very small penalty, but they're threatening the small banks, just like everything else. So small banks are going to come after them. And so there was this conference of anti-money laundering individuals, anti-money laundering and financial crime conference. And this was back in March. And this was the Assistant Attorney General, Caldwell, who went and addressed them. And what he did was he used this occasion to threaten the small banks. And he says that he also talks about a process where they're going after Kleptocracy Asset Recovery Initiative, CARRY. I guess it's kind of like cash and carry, where they go after a foreign government. They say, well, we determined that this foreign government we think is corrupt, so we're going to call it a kleptocracy. And we're going to say that wherever we can get to any of their assets, we're going to just steal them. Okay. Now, of course, they're not going to give it back to the people. They're going to keep it. The U.S. government is going to keep it. They're going to keep it just like law enforcement keeps the stuff that they steal. But that's the whole point. The irony of this is that our government is the biggest kleptocracy on the planet. It is a rule by thieves. That's what these people are doing throughout this. But I want to read to you what he said to these bankers. He said, when the criminal division, that's what he represents, and these are the people that will be trying Dennis Hastert. He said, when the criminal division evaluates a company's compliance policy during an investigation, we don't only look at how the policy reads on paper. We also look at messages that are conveyed to employees, including in-person meetings, emails, telephone calls, compensation. In other words, this is a full-on East German surveillance state, okay, where they're going to look at everything about your business. They're going to complete surveillance of everything. It's not going to be like the privileged people like Hillary Clinton who say they've got a private email server and you can't see that. No, they're going to come in and look at everything in these banks. They say we look at it as a whole, a company that's meaningfully stressed compliance, have they? Or if they're faced in a conflict between compliance and profits, does the company choose profits? In the anti-money laundering and sanctions context in particular, effective compliance requires more. And I'd like to highlight a few points. First, you need to know your customer. In other words, spy incessantly on your customer. Constantly report everything about your customer. And he says, it's not enough just to be filing these reports. We want you to do more reports, and we want you to contact law enforcement completely. They say part of this is information sharing. Okay. And he says the second thing is, if this is a foreign bank and they have a U.S. branch, then this foreign bank that happens to have a branch somewhere in the United States, they need to spy on all of their customers in that other country. So if they've got if it's an Irish bank, they want them to spy on all the Irish customers. I know this is an international show. We got a lot of people who watch us from around the world. Here's the point, folks. If you don't live in the United States, make sure you don't do business with a bank that has a branch in the United States, because if you do, the federal government wants that Irish bank, even if you never set foot in the U.S., they want that Irish bank to report everything about you, anything that is suspicious. And then if some federal agency wants to assume that you did something suspicious, they will confiscate your cash, even though you never set foot in the United States. That's the kind of kleptocracy we have. You want a real kleptocracy? It's right here in Washington.
Wow.
And he says the majority of financial institutions file suspicious activity reports, but we encourage those institutions to consider whether to take more action, specifically alert law enforcement authorities about the problem. They may be able to seize funds or initiate an investigation or take other proactive steps. And he goes on to say, you might think this is going to cost you a lot of money to hire all these anti-money laundering personnel. But he said, it may not be a profit center, but an investment will pay off, because if you don't do it, we will come after you, is essentially what he's saying to them.
Wow. So you're investing in not
it's
being investigated.
It's a protection racket. These people are nothing but gangsters. Look at the way this U.S. attorney, Stephen West, comes to these people. He steals their money. He has no reason to steal their money. And then he says, I'll tell you what, I'll give you back half of it.
Don't get us ratcheted up. No.
Yeah. Don't talk to the press. Don't tell anybody about this. I'll give you half of it back. It's like, you stole this from me. I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm glad these two businesses went out with this. I suspect we just saw these two things pop up all at once. We saw this second one pop up in North Carolina. I suspect the only reason we saw this second one pop up is because of the publicity that the first one got. And I think that now the local news in North Carolina is looking for this. If we make this go national, I bet this is going to be popping up everywhere. This is standard operating procedure. As bad as this is with this particular attorney, Stephen West, this is not something that is just coming out of that one North Carolina office. This is national, and it is international, as I just pointed out. They will steal your money if you live in another country, never set foot in the United States. If your bank, not even a U.S. bank that you're dealing with, but if your foreign bank has a branch in the United States, they can use that to steal your money.
Wow, that's unbelievable. I didn't know about that aspect of the deal at all. And it's important, like you have mentioned, what they really want everyone to focus on is the sexual indiscretions of this man's past. And of course, he's the embodiment of everything that's sleazy there in Washington with that. But that's not what they came after him for. And the issue here is the over-criminalization.
Exactly. We saw that with Waco, if you remember. when they went into Waco, of course, this is something that was already staged. They had the press. They called the press to come and watch what they were going to do. The key word to kick it off was showtime when they attacked the Branch Davidians. But when all of this went south and everything blew up in their face, what they did was they didn't talk about any federal firearms issues that they were coming after him for. Okay, this was the ATF. They were only coming after him. They only had the jurisdiction to come after him for some kind of a firearms problem. They didn't talk about that whatsoever. And of course, it was nothing, again, except some paperwork charges, okay, that he had not paid. What they did was they smeared him with allegations of child abuse, child sex abuse. And when I looked at that, it's like, give me a break. That's not why this happened. Right. You know, it was hard to get information back in that day. We didn't have internet. We had to rely on just billboards that were passing things around. So it was difficult to get information. But when you saw that, you knew there was something wrong. When the government was vilifying these people, saying this is all about child abuse, it's like, if it was about child abuse, the ATF wouldn't have been there with an armed raid. They wouldn't have called the press to come in there. It was simply a beard. And so now they're doing that again. They don't want you to focus on structuring. They don't want you to wake up and understand what's going on with civil asset forfeiture before it happens to you or your family. But you need to wake up. You need to understand what's going on, because it will happen to you. It will happen to people that you know if we don't stop this. This is a criminal kleptocracy. Thieves. And of course, these thieves were put into place by people like Dennis Hastert. So he deserves what he gets, but we don't deserve to be abused by his perversion of the legal system. And that's the key thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, you nailed it right there with that. It makes me want to leave this country, but where would we go? I mean, it seems as though it's...
Yeah, they'll steal your money no matter what country you're in.
Exactly.
So,
well, now, on the Alex Jones show today, we had Wayne Madsen come on, and he was actually the investigative journalist who broke this Hastert blackmail sex scandal story in 2006.
9 years ago.
Yeah, he was the first one to come out about it. Of course, you know, conspiracy theorists and all of that. But here, you know, years later... That's
what they call anybody who's an investigative journalist. You're called a conspiracy theorist if your investigation uncovers criminal or embarrassing information about people in power. You're a conspiracy theorist. That's their pushback. Right.
And that's kind of what you're supposed to do as an investigator, is you're supposed to look at what's underneath the surface and what's not, you know, what they're not just telling you right there.
If you follow it wherever it leads, that's what they'll do to protect themselves.
Well, let's take a look at this report from Wade Madsen on the Alex Jones show today.
Okay, on September 30th, 2006, I first reported on my website about this past misconduct of Dennis Hastert. Remember, he was Speaker of the House, third in line under presidential succession to the presidency. If I can just read this, because it's very interesting, this background of Hastert and how he got to his position. What I reported on September 30th, 2006, 9 years ago, congressional sources told me that Hastert, while working from 1964 to 1980 as a popular history government teacher and wrestling coach at Yorkville High School in Yorkville, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, was the subject of persistent rumors about inappropriate contact with male members of his high school wrestling team. The culture of the times usually resulted in such alleged behavior being covered up by public and parochial school authorities. However, the rumors were enough for his Yorkville constituency to reject him when he ran for an open seat in the Illinois House of Representatives in 1980. However, Hastert lucked out when another sitting Republican House member who represented the 3-seat district had a stroke and declined to run for re-election. The GOP machine bosses selected Hastert as the replacement candidate. Hastert served in Springfield from 80 to 86, 6 years to make the transformation from wrestling coach with that cloud surrounding himself to politician. In 1986, Hastert received another unexpected promotion after incumbent Republican U.S. Representative John Gropeberg was nominated by the GOP for a second term. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer and fell into a coma. The Illinois Republican Convention selected Hastert as the replacement on the ticket, a virtual election to the U.S. House in a strongly Republican district. So that's how Hastert got in to the House of Representatives, he was